I was pulling out into traffic. I started driving, and suddenly she'd say, "Pull over, Robert, pull over." And I go, "Why? Why? I can drive, I'm fine." And then suddenly everything started getting really strange. Everything looked strange. My voice didn't sound the same. And she was like freaking out. I was undergoing a stroke. I had a blood clot that was blocking the blood flow to my brain. I actually at one point got out of the car, like I don't know what the hell I was thinking. And then she pulled me back in, and then the rest goes blank. And I had some weird sensations that still remain with me because essentially I was on the verge of dying. So she called 911 right away. She recognized something. My whole face was looking funny. And they got there. I was unconscious. And essentially they took this shirt and they just scissored the thing in half and took it off my head. And then they intubated me, I believe, in my hip area to get something. The blood clot was in my neck, and they were able to free it up, and they rushed me to the hospital. I'm unconscious, and then I wake up, and I'm in a gurney in the hospital. And for a moment, I'm thinking maybe I'm dead because I'm lying in a gurney and I almost feel like I'm in a coffin. I don't know what's going on. And I have all of these weird sensations. We're so curious about death. We think about death a lot. And, is it final? What does it mean? We really should pay attention to dying. Dying is actually much more interesting in some ways than death. And people who have died go through a process if it's long enough. And people who have had near-death experiences like I do have gone through that process of dying and have come back to life. And in the process of dying, strange things happen to the brain. So particularly with a stroke or something like that, where oxygen stops flowing to your brain, you have kind of visions and things that you might think are hallucinations, but that later seem like you are actually glimpsing the reality as opposed to the illusion that the brain creates. My idea of the brain is that it creates endless series of illusions for you. It creates this seamless version of reality, the sense of a self, the sense of a continuous self through time. It creates a linear sense of time progression. It creates colors. It creates a world that visually seems familiar, and et cetera, but it's all illusion. It's all a construction. Images come into your brain and they're not organized in any way, and the brain organizes in a way that you can understand it. Well, when you're dying, all of that scrambles up and you actually are seeing something else. So I saw, for instance, that I really don't have a self, that it doesn't really actually exist, and the image that came to my mind, because it was sitting in that gurney, was a weird feeling of, I can almost not explain it, but it's as if you took an image of something real in the world and you completely scrambled it up and it was all wavy and you couldn't see what exactly it was. To me, that was the image I had of the self. There are like 50 different selves inside of you that are all competing. And you think there's just one and you think it's consistent, but there's not. It's an illusion. The self is literally an illusion that your brain constructs. When you're dying, you see these things. When you're dying, you see other things like that. You see that time is something very weird. So I had an experience of when I got out of the car and I got pulled in, I thought like 10 seconds had passed. My wife told me, no, that was like 10 minutes. I had no sense of time. Everything was scrambled. And so it was very, very eloquent. It taught me so much, things that I can barely even express now. I'm always now thinking of strange things that come to me because my brain was damaged. It made me realize that the brain creates everything. So I can't communicate with my hand, my fingers. I can't communicate, my brain can't communicate with my leg. So you think that walking and riding and handling things is just your body operating a certain way? It's your brain telling you how to move these different things. When that brain stops functioning, you realize how much your brain determines everything. It all starts there. And when there's damage to your brain, your whole thinking alters, etc. Not to mention how you look at life itself after something like that. So it was a terrible experience. It's ruined so many things that I loved in life. but it's given me an awful lot as well in return that I could go on for hours and talk about, because it was the most powerful experience of my life. I had this vision that I was dead when I first became conscious, and that I was up in the sky and I was looking down, and my mother and my wife were talking, and it's like over my grave, I suppose. And I had this feeling, everything's okay. I'm gone, but life goes on. They're doing fine. It's okay. So I don't know about that sense of self, whether it was like I'm aware of it happening, but I have a feeling it was something from the outside. I don't really know the answer to that because it's very confused. The other feeling I had was life, when I was having the stroke, was life draining out of me and my bones getting softer and softer and softer. And I can't really logically explain that, the feeling of bones softening up and dissolving. But for weeks and months afterwards, I could access that feeling of my bones dissolving, etc. It was a feeling of all your energy draining out of you and you're dying, literally. I had to confront some of my own demons. I had to confront the sense that I expected things out of life, and here they're taken away, and I'm kind of ungrateful for being alive, and here I'm pissed off that it takes me 10 minutes to tie my shoes and I can't really button my shirt. I had to learn what really matters and to have patience and stuff. The other thing was, I used to love hiking. I was very physically active, and I'm sitting at my window in my office and I see people running up and down, bicycling, walking their dogs. God, I'm so envious. If I could walk a dog right now, I'd be the happiest person alive. But then I go through a thought process which maybe isn't completely healthy, which is they're not aware of how wonderful it is just to walk a dog. But I'm aware of it. So when I go out in my backyard and I can't walk, and I'm seeing, like, I know this is gonna sound really triacly and sentimental, but I see, butterflies or things in my garden, I'm like, whoa, that's incredible, Things like that I couldn't appreciate before because I'm sedentary and I can't move. I have to suddenly pay attention to what's around me, not take it for granted, and find and suck all of the pleasure out of it that I can. So now, when I sit at my desk to write my new book, it's 4 hours because that's all I can stand, maybe 3 sometimes. Those 4 hours are like such bliss for me. I truly appreciate it now because I know that my brain was almost gone, right? So it means so much for me. And to just be alive, is just a wondrous experience. If you think about it, and how unlikely it is that we humans evolved at all, even that we even exist. We nearly went extinct 80,000 years ago from some virus that infected, there were only 8,000 humans on the planet. All these different things, and here we are with Zoom meetings, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the strangest story you can ever, it's beyond science fiction, but nobody thinks about it. Nobody sits down and goes, God, I'm alive. If you went back to the chain of people that had to connect and have children leading up to your parents, the unlikeliness of you ever being born is astronomical. 70,000 generations of people meeting, et cetera, finally ending at your DNA. I mean, unless I'm missing something, it's pretty unlikely. But nobody thinks about it. Well, I certainly think about it now because I almost died. So it's taken a lot away from me. I can't swim. I'm riding my recumbent bike, which I love, and 80-year-old grandmothers are zipping by me. And God damn it, how awful. I'm so envious. My insecurities all well up. But then I realize, hey, I'm like on a boat. I'm sailing. It's wonderful. I'm outside. I have to go through these processes, but I think it's developed me in some way that's in the end very positive. I totally took my life for granted. I was swimming all this time. It was fantastic. I was bicycling. I was traveling. But I never sat back and thought, wow, this is wonderful, how grateful it is. It could be taken away from me. I tell people, don't do that to yourself. I try and teach them. It can be taken away from you tomorrow.